Hello everyone, I'm Dylan Nix, writer and director of Sharp Candy, and I decided to do this commentary solo, purely out of scheduling issues, and also just because it being the last episode, there's a lot I want to talk about, so I just kind of decided to go solo on this one, and hopefully you guys are okay with that. Here we are listening to the opening theme one more time. Originally, the Sharp Candy theme was actually for a totally different project, and that project never came to fruition. So, it was just an awesome piece of score. So when I came up with the idea of this series, I just happened to remember that track from my friend Gunnar Clark, and I put it to that opening shot of the pumpkin, and that's almost how the idea of the show really came to be. Was I saw that and I was just like, okay, I gotta put something to this. And then here we are in a cemetery not too far from my house, and I usually ride my bike through here, and it's just really always beautiful and isolated and quiet and just kind of eerie. And it always reminded me of John Carpenter's Halloween. Of course, that movie was shot in California, and it's supposed to take place in the Midwest, but it is kind of funny how in that movie everything's still green, and there's moss hanging from the trees, and it doesn't really look like what people think of fall in the Midwest, and I always thought that was kind of funny. And of course, we shot this in Florida, so our seasons never change either. But I think I really took a lot of inspiration from the 1978 Halloween for this. Of course, this shot right here of the school, right here, that was all inspired by Carpenter, or at least hopefully that translates. If not, I'm not saying I'm John Carpenter, of course. Just inspired by. And then this scene here was probably my favorite scene to shoot, mainly because I got to work with this actor here, David E. McMahon, and he is just phenomenal. He's a great person, and he reached out to me around the time that I think was first starting production on Sharp Candy, and he had just seen some of my work and reached out to me and said he wanted to be considered for any project that I might have in mind. And originally I was going to do season 1 and 2 of this show back to back, and I reached out to him for a role in season 2 for a character named Ginger Cabell. And unfortunately, eventually things kind of just snowballed, and it looked like season 2 was just going to have to be put on hold until I got season 1 done. So I refocused on season 1, but I still wanted to include David in some way. So I came up with the idea to have him play a twin brother of that character. If we got to do a season 2, he could come back for that, but at least he'd get to be in this. So I rewrote the principal role as a twin brother to that character, and so that way we also have a connection to season 2, but also so that David could have some more screen time and get to be in season 1, and so I could get to work with him, because he really is just a phenomenal actor. He's been in quite a few indie horror projects, and I mean, his name's just getting thrown around, so I really wanted to include him in this season, and he's just phenomenal. He steals this scene, and I wish we could have done more with him in this episode, but he's fantastic. Him and Cole Walsh, the actor playing Carter, just do a great job here, and this scene just is very near and dear to my heart, not only because of how good the performances are, but also because the set alone. This was an office I had to create by myself, and I broke my ankle about 25% of the way through this episode, and So this scene and several other scenes, I was working in either a cast or a boot from a wheelchair most of the time. So I had a bunch of locations drop out on me for an office location. So eventually I had to just make an office from scratch. And the shelf, the desk, everything you see here, I had to move into this room by myself from a wheelchair. And it was one of the hardest things I had to do on the shoot, but I think it paid off. It really looks great. We're really happy with it. And yeah, this is just one of my favorite scenes. And David's just great. Cole's great. And a funny little thing is David's actually not wearing any pants in this scene because he was going to be sitting down the whole time. He decided to just keep the shorts he had on and just put on the suit jacket and top. So that was kind of funny. We had a good time shooting this. And here we are transitioning over to Halloween night. And the score here was, this whole episode was done by Carl from White Bat Audio. And he absolutely just crushed it. He's a phenomenal artist, and I just came across his YouTube channel one day, and I just loved his retro synth score, and I just reached out to him to do music for episode 2 originally, and I just loved it so much I asked him to do all of episode 4. So he scored everything in this except for the very end and the end credits, which we'll get to a little bit later. But there's a throwback, or there's a nod to a little Easter egg to season 2. There was the trick-or-treater that got sacrificed. But yeah, the score is just fantastic in this episode. And then this was my dad that got egged. He volunteered to be in it, which helped me out because we were on just a very tight schedule. Things were getting close to, needing to be done if we wanted to release on time, and a lot of setbacks were due to my broken ankle. So thankfully this scene, all of this stuff was all shot before I'd broken my ankle. But my dad offered to play a role, and he did a good job, and I got to egg him in the face, which was kind of funny.
How far does it live? Not far. No, come on. And put your mask back on. Can we trick or treat along the way?
And then this is Ethan May, who's played the zombie character in all of the episodes except for episode 2. He doesn't appear, but he was a trooper, and him and his mom were just great, and they're good friends of mine, and they've been there since Janie's Night day 1. And originally he wasn't even going to be in this. It wasn't until Janie's Night wrapped that I came up with the idea to have his character come back for other episodes and intertwine them all together. And thankfully he was available, and he did it and was willing, and he's awesome. He's a really good kid, and I was grateful to have him back each time to film, because it was a couple of times that we had to have him come out and work around his schedule and his mom's schedule. And my main goal for this episode was I really just wanted to make it feel like Halloween with what we had available, and I really just wanted to try and give people that feeling that I had growing up with Halloween. I grew up in Florida, so we didn't get to have the trees changing colors and the leaves and everything, but it was still, it very much felt like Halloween, and there's a certain feeling I get every year while still living here around October time, and I just really wanted to try and capture that with this series, and particularly this episode, because we got to see houses and neighborhoods decorated and trick-or-treaters and daytime Halloween decorations, so I really just wanted to try and capture that. And I think that's why this is my favorite episode out of everything we've done. But this scene's funny. Funny little moment there for those two. And this scene was actually the last scene we shot for Sharp Candy. There's one shot coming up soon, which is was the official last shot that we got for Sharp Candy, but this was the last scene that we did, and I was being torn alive by mosquitoes. We all were, but I was the one who wasn't in a costume and was in shorts, and I had to grab some clothes out of my car to put on, but just because the mosquitoes were so bad. But we got it, and the scene looks great, and I'm very happy with it. And this house was actually producer Chloe Walker's house. She was kind enough to let us shoot there for this episode. And here we have more score coming in from White Bat Audio. He's just fantastic, Carl. This episode would not be what it is, I don't think, if he hadn't done just an amazing job with the score. And so the scene we just left with them outside, my foot was healed thankfully by then, so I was able to move around a lot more. But for everything in this house, I was in a boot, so I could kind of walk around, but I had a cane with me or use the tripod to help me move around. It was definitely a challenge, but we got it all done in one day, and I think it's really just a fun sequence. And Principal Habble's house. It's a good shot. Makes the killer seem larger. Principal Habble dead there. Again, the score here is just fantastic. I know you can't hear it because we're doing commentary, but if you go back and watch this episode and you get to this part, the music is just it was my favorite track that I got to listen to. And then funny choice for the mask. I know it looks kind of large on the Mrs. Habble character, and we kind of did that on purpose. It kind of as a joke, and because it's a classic Dracula mask as well, which is a classic monster, but also is also kind of just a little happy accident. I had brought another mask that we were going to use that I had spray painted red, and unfortunately the mask was, for some reason the paint had a weird effect on the mask where it didn't, I guess I used the wrong paint or something, and it was still sticky and coming off on your hands, and also when you put the mask on, it just reeked of spray paint, and kind of got you, made you a little lightheaded. So this was the only other mask we had available, and it worked. I'm happy with the way it turned out. I always wanted to use it in a project. And it's kind of creepy looking. In this episode, while writing it, I took a lot of inspiration from John Carpenter's Halloween, the original Scream, Scream 4 a little bit as well. Um,
He's deader than a doorknob. I'm sorry, but I had to scare you, Pete. It's Halloween after all. That's why we had to come here last. You planned this? You really killed him? He deserved it. Tell him, Sarah. Marriage is a tough thing, boys.
and this, the actress playing Mrs. Havel is actually Gunnar Clark's mom. Gunnar Clark did the theme of Sharp Candy, and she does a great job, and she's kind of like a second mom to me, and she's a lot of fun to be around, and almost every October I go over to her house, and we decorate and have dinner and with her family, and it's a lot of fun, and her and Ethan's mom are friends, so that's kind of how it's all just one big family, honestly. Cole I met through an ad, a casting ad for this, but me and him became great friends during the production of this, and I really just like working with people that, I can get along with and that just want to have fun. Like, yeah, it's an art form, it is a business as well, but I love doing this out of love, out of passion. If I really don't make too much money off of this, if not really any at all. Not yet. Hopefully this leads to something bigger and better, but I just did this as a passion project mostly, and just out of love for Halloween and wanting an excuse to be around Halloween all year long. And I think as a whole, this series is a lot of fun. It has some technical flaws, that's for sure, but I think it's a lot of fun, and it's different, and I think it's really just about celebrating Halloween and the nostalgia of it, hopefully. And this is the scene that was kind of inspired by Scream just a little bit. And it was actually rewritten, or it was written differently in the script. And then when we showed up to film this scene, I can't remember exactly who pitched the idea, but I think it was either Cole or Chloe, our producer. They suggested that, like, what if they started yelling at Ethan here to stab her, and that kind of just quickly made me think, oh, that'd be fun, like, kind of adds to the fucked up crazy shit going on if they just start yelling at him to stab her. And also it takes on a double meaning if you because it is kind of odd. Her performance is very kind of, I want to say, sexual. Just, when she got stabbed there, her moan was a little strange, and that was done on purpose. I wanted there to be a double, I wanted there to be something you could read between the lines, and hopefully pick up on. I think it's a coming of age story for the Peter character. He's a young kid, and the stabber, that could take on a double meaning as well. And then here, this quick shot right here, that's my buddy Jeff Everhart, who played Mr. Carver in all the past projects that he's been in, and unfortunately he couldn't play Mr. Carver in episode 2, The Pawnbroker. He was just too busy and whatnot, but I wanted to have him in this, and he does play Mr. Carver in the original Carvers episode that we see here in a second, but I wanted a new shot just for this series. So I messaged him and I said, hey, is there anything you can do in the Carver outfit, just in your own house or something, just to have like in the background for this little TV segment? And that's what he came up with. This shot right here of the candy is the last shot I got for sharp candy. Ironically enough, but anyways, yeah. So he just filmed himself in the bathtub, and it worked. It's funny, and I'm just glad I got him in there for that. And then also the "All right, you little monsters" voice you heard, that was an actor named AJ Dana, and he reached out to me as well, and offered to do some voiceover work for this for free, just because he loves Halloween and he wanted to be a part of the project. And he's a really talented voice actor. He's been in a ton of stuff, and unfortunately I didn't really have anything, so I actually wrote that little dialogue specifically so that I could give him that and put him in here. And it worked. It was a great way to transition from the Habble house to here, to the two trickers watching TV, where it all ties into episode 2 and the Mr. Carver lore. And this was the Carvers episode from my first feature, Baron von Laffo's Halloween Spookathon. And I was able to reuse it for this and work it into the story. And this whole ending scene is basically just the kind of a recapping of episode 2 and tying it all together and kind of giving a little bit more story to episode 2. Because if you go back and watch episode 2, it kind of just ends. And that's what this scene, serves as. Is supposed to serve as an ending, but also a setup for that. So, the story kind of comes full circle, and we really know what was going on. And this is just some fun miniature work that I got to work with, because we are low budget, so and dealing with time constraints, but I don't think I would have honestly done it any other way. I think this is just a fun little retro montage here that was really fun to do. I really love miniatures. I've always wanted to do like a stop motion film, and who knows, maybe I will at some point. And Ethan and Cole do a good job here. And this scene was a scene, I think this was the first scene they actually acted together in. Which is surprising, considering, their chemistry really carries over even here, and this was the first time they met. And here we are, just flashing back to episode 2. And just for anyone that perhaps just didn't connect the dots, in episode 1 we see Carter and Pete in their Halloween costumes trick-or-treating from Janie in the opening scene of that episode. And then they aren't seen in episode 2, but you can see Carter's scarecrow mask on display in the pawn shop commercial. So it's supposed to be hinted that that's where he got his scarecrow costume from. Was at the pawn shop. And then in episode 3, of course, we see their characters running out of the gas station with the eggs that they stole and that they use in episode 4. So there's really 3 kind of stories going on throughout the course of season 1. There's the Baron von Laffo and the old bitch story, and then there's the Mr. Carver story, the cult, and then there's also the American Trickers, these two, and their story going on. And it all kind of intertwines together. And I just want to thank everyone for giving this season a watch, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, I'm sorry. But hopefully you did. Hopefully you felt the passion from all of us involved, and you felt our genuine love for Halloween. And we'd love to come back for season 2. However, I think it wouldn't revolve around any of these characters. It would be a complete new season, set at a different time, not during Halloween. If we did more seasons, potentially we could come back and revisit, but I wanted every season to be have its own stories and new characters, but they all potentially can tie back into previous seasons. And then here we are, ending fittingly on the Sharp Candy theme, albeit a little bit slowed down. And what's going to be outside the window? Whatever could it be? Of course, the real Mr. Carver coming to pay a visit. And that is the end of episode 4, American Trickers, and also the end of season 1 of Sharp Candy. And like I was saying, I just really appreciate everyone who gave this a watch. Even if you didn't like it, I still appreciate it. And if you did like it, please tell your friends, tell your family, share it as much as possible. Visit us on archercoproductions.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube, because we're always doing little short films and skits and things, because we really just love to create. And that's what this entire season was born out of, was our love for Halloween and just to create, despite, not having too much of a budget or, having that big of a crew. We did what we could, and we're proud of it, and I think we succeeded in what we set out to do. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you'll see us again for season 2. Perhaps if this takes off. And, yeah. Thank you very much, and have a very happy Halloween.